For years, international media painted Malaysia with the same tired brushstrokes: corrupt government, backward society, dangerous for tourists, a country perpetually on the brink of chaos. If you believe the headlines, you'd think Malaysia was a place to avoid, a cautionary tale of what happens when diversity goes wrong and development stalls. Major news outlets barely cover Malaysia, except when reporting scandals, protests, or political drama, creating this distorted image that bore almost no resemblance to reality. But here's the truth they conveniently ignored. While the media was busy cherry-picking negative stories and perpetuating stereotypes, Malaysia was quietly building one of the most successful, stable, and harmonious societies in the developing world. The gap between what the media told us and what's actually happening on the ground in Malaysia is so enormous that it borders on journalistic malpractice. And it's time someone exposed exactly what they got wrong. The media's favorite narrative was that Malaysia's ethnic diversity was a ticking time bomb waiting to explode into violence. Western journalists loved comparing Malaysia to Yugoslavia or Rwanda, predicting that the mix of Malays, Chinese, Indians, and indigenous groups would inevitably lead to bloodshed and chaos. They'd report every minor incident as evidence that multicultural societies can't work, that Malaysia was proof that different religions and ethnicities couldn't peacefully coexist. Yet here's what they deliberately ignored. Malaysia has maintained peace and stability for over 6 decades while building a thriving economy where Malay Muslims, Chinese Buddhists and Christians, Indian Hindus, and indigenous communities not only live side by side, but actively collaborate in business, government, and daily life. While the media predicted collapse, Malaysians were busy building shopping centers where halal restaurants sit next to Chinese dim sum places next to Indian curry houses, creating a living model of coexistence that puts most Western countries to shame. The corruption narrative became the media's obsession, especially during the 1MDB scandal. Yes, Malaysia faced serious corruption issues. No one denies that. But the media treated this as if corruption was uniquely Malaysian, as if it defined the entire nation, while conveniently ignoring that Malaysia's institutions were strong enough to actually prosecute the prime minister, hold transparent trials, and implement democratic change. How many countries can claim they peacefully voted out a government that had ruled for 61 years and then successfully prosecuted their former leader? The media gave minimal coverage to this remarkable demonstration of democratic resilience, preferring to leave audiences with the impression that Malaysia was hopelessly corrupt. Meanwhile, they wrote glowing profiles of other Asian nations with far worse corruption but better PR teams, and rarely applied the same scrutiny to Western nations where corporate lobbying and political donations achieved the same results with fancier legal frameworks. The economic story the media told was perhaps their biggest lie of all. They portrayed Malaysia as stagnant, struggling, unable to compete with its neighbors, forever stuck in the middle-income trap. Yet the numbers tell a completely different story that journalists apparently couldn't be bothered to research. Malaysia is the world's largest exporter of semiconductors and semiconductor equipment, a global leader in Islamic finance, one of the top destinations for medical tourism in Asia, and home to manufacturing facilities for nearly every major electronics and automotive brand you can name. Penang's semiconductor industry alone is worth billions across the country. Alcohol is widely available in Chinese and tourist areas. Pork is sold openly in non-Muslim areas. Religious festivals from every tradition are public holidays. The media would breathlessly report on some conservative proposal or local controversy, while completely ignoring that Malaysia's practical implementation of religious coexistence puts supposedly secular nations to shame. You can attend a Hindu temple festival in the morning, visit a Chinese temple at noon, tour a mosque in the afternoon, and attend Christmas Mass in the evening. All in the same city, all welcomed by their respective communities. Try finding that level of genuine religious freedom reported in Western media coverage in Malaysia. The environmental narrative was equally dishonest. The media loved to bash Malaysia about palm oil and deforestation, presenting the country as an environmental villain, destroying rainforests for profit. This criticism wasn't entirely unfair. Malaysia does face real environmental challenges from palm oil cultivation. But what the media conveniently omitted was that Malaysia still maintains over 50% forest cover, has created extensive national parks and conservation programs, and has actually been reforesting significant areas while implementing sustainable palm oil certifications. They never mention that Malaysia's palm oil is significantly more efficient per hectare than alternatives like soybean or rapeseed oil, requiring far less land to produce the same amount. They ignored Malaysia's investments in renewable energy, its protection of orangutan habitats, and its leadership in regional environmental cooperation. The media wanted a simple villain story, so they cropped out everything that complicated their narrative, leaving audiences with a completely distorted picture. The technological advancement story was perhaps the media's most glaring omission. While they obsess over tech hubs in Singapore, Tokyo, and Seoul, they completely miss that Malaysia had quietly built world-class digital infrastructure and a thriving tech ecosystem. Cyberjaya isn't just a name. It's a functioning smart city with fiber optic networks, tech campuses, and innovation centers that rival anything in the region. Malaysia's digital payment adoption outpaces many Western countries. The government digitized services years before COVID forced others to catch up. Malaysian startups like Grab, co-founded by a Malaysian, became regional unicorns. But you'd never know any of this from international media coverage, which seemed determined to portray Malaysia as technologically backward. The truth is that Malaysia leapfrogged many developed nations in digital adoption, but admitting this would require journalists to update their outdated mental models of what Muslim-majority developing countries can achieve. The education and healthcare lies might have been the most personally damaging to Malaysia's international reputation. Media reports suggested Malaysian universities were inferior, that the country's education system was failing, that healthcare was substandard. The reality? Malaysia's top universities rank globally and attract students from across Asia and the Middle East. Malaysian doctors train in world-class medical schools and staff hospitals throughout the UK, Australia, and the Middle East. Malaysia's healthcare system delivers quality medical care at a fraction of Western costs, which is why medical tourism has become a major industry. People fly to Malaysia specifically for treatments because the quality equals or exceeds what they'd receive at home, but at prices that don't require selling a kidney. Malaysian students consistently perform well in international assessments, and the country's literacy rate and educational attainment continue climbing. But the media narrative remains stuck in outdated stereotypes that bore no relationship to current reality. The shocking truth is that media organizations relied on lazy stereotypes, colonial-era prejudices, and sensationalist cherry-picking instead of actual reporting about what Malaysia had become. They needed Malaysia to fit into their predetermined narratives about Muslim countries, about developing nations, about ethnic diversity, about corruption. So they twisted every story to reinforce those narratives regardless of facts. Malaysia's success, its genuine, measurable, undeniable success in creating a prosperous, peaceful, multicultural society, was too complicated and too inconvenient for the simple stories media organizations wanted to tell. So they lied, not always through outright fabrication, but through omission, emphasis, and framing that created a fundamentally false picture. Malaysia isn't perfect, no country is, but it's so much better than the media portrait that anyone visiting for the first time experiences genuine shock at the disconnect between reputation and reality. This is a new channel committed to exposing the truths that mainstream media ignores about Malaysia, and your support helps us continue uncovering the real stories that deserve to be told. If you've been misled by media narratives about Malaysia, or if you want to support honest reporting that challenges lazy stereotypes, hit that like button. Subscribe to join our community dedicated to truth over clickbait, and drop a comment sharing which media lie about Malaysia shocked you most. Let's build a platform where Malaysia's real story, the good, the bad, and the complex, finally gets told accurately.